People are joining all the time, so Alexa, are you able to let them in at the same time as going on to the next slide?
Yep, and also, can I just let everybody know that we are recording this session? So I have just started the recording as well.
So what we're going to go through, we're going to look at the support and guidance, the ICE document and our checklists. We're going to talk about the key activities that needs to be considered in the centre in terms of getting set up ahead of time. Then we're going to talk about what to expect on exams day, and then the best bit, answering all your questions. We've got 53% exams officers, so that's brilliant. Heads of department, IT technicians, subject teachers. It's a great spread of responsibilities, and this is exactly what we like to see, because if in your centre you've got those three people on the team, the exams officer, the IT support and the subject teacher, you can be more confident of having a smooth assessment. So thank you for that. Should we move on then? So the ICE is at version 1.7. When we presented this new design of the qualification to Ofqual for accreditation way back, now it seems like a long time ago, we had an ICE submitted along with the SAMs and the spec, because we knew that making paper 2 work smoothly was a very important thing. And this is our delivery methodology for paper 2 is actually something which is probably 14 years old. We've been delivering assessments like this for quite some time. So we have some experience, and hopefully we'll be able to help you understand or prepare for any things that might come up that would be an issue. We also created role-specific checklists, which are a really helpful thing to reference when you come to getting your team together and in preparation for the day. So what's the next slide say? Have you downloaded, read and shared the ICE and checklists with your team?
And this should be something that hopefully you've received through an email kind of communication from either Julie and myself or through our Pearson Communications team.
So, you know, if you have not seen the ICE and checklists or are not aware of them, make sure you can email me, teachingict@pearson.com, or you can put your name in the chat. It's a document which is absolutely vital to helping you get organised in the run up to the assessment. So, are you capturing answers there of most people?
Yep, we have. We've got 61% of people here today have downloaded it and shared it. So that's really, really great.
Great, thank you. So this presentation, and I believe we're planning to share the presentation, aren't we, with all of the attendees? So don't feel like you have to write anything down or capture anything. But there's a link here to that ICE. It's really important to read. The exam is the Tuesday, 21st of May, PM. The coding files will be released on 8 a.m. of that day. And we're asking you at the end of the assessment to upload using Learner Work Transfer. And you have up until the Thursday of that week, midday. And, you know, if there are any problems, we don't foresee there being any problems because Learner Work Transfer for our qualification is working very smoothly because our file sizes are so small. So that should work fine. Results day, of course, then is the 21st and 22nd of August. Now, just go back to that, Alexa. I don't know how you got that past me, but you should not underline key dates. Our lovely delegates here, who are highly IT literate, will see that and think that is implying that there's a link there of some sort. I'm a stickler for this.
I apologise for any confusion. I do know about that. I do apologise.
Never underline headings. Okay, great. Next slide. There's no questions, by the way, yet, Alexa, or okay.
No,
Please
not that I
do.
can see.
Yeah. Are you able to see the chat and everything? Okay, great. Role-specific checklists. So when we were thinking about how to support centres, it just made I can remember running an assessment with the same methodology when I was teaching, and the key thing for me as a teacher was getting the exams officer, the subject teacher, and the IT support people on board as a team. And we thought these checklists would be very helpful. I mean, I don't think these checklists could be seen as everything or perfect, but they're a great starting point. Please feel free to feedback what you think of them, if you think there are glaring things that are missing, but it's definitely a good structure to get started with. So we've had a couple of questions come in about the slides. Yeah, we'll share a copy of the slides. So, next slide, please, Alexa. Key preparation. So we're going to talk about what should be done up front, and ideally also at when you're doing mocks, say, for example. So if we go to the next slide. So the way that this delivery of this assessment works is the students should be on your computers in a exam user profile. If you're a Windows school, we're talking about a roaming profile that would be set up specifically for the exam, and the roaming profile would have some restrictions, such as the students' previous or existing schoolwork should not be accessible during when they're logged onto this special account. And also the internet shouldn't be working. Other than that, there should be the ability for the students to read and write files, to run Python 3, whichever subversion you have, so long as it's 3 point something. You will have no trouble. And installed in that user profile should be the tools that the student normally uses for writing, debugging, and fixing program code. So it would be the Python language itself, as well as an integrated development environment or editor, code editor, IDE. If your students have been trained and taught to use Microsoft Excel to help them gather their thoughts or think about the code structure, it's fine. Any other tool that you want to make available for the students, because that's what they've used in practice, is free to be used. The integrity and security of this assessment is that anything that the students do is their own work, and there's no collaborative features from any IDE that are available, and no internet and no browsing or sharing work. But I have sometimes had questions: can we install Excel? You absolutely can if you think your students would find that a useful thing in addition to Python and your IDE. Some centres install 2 or 3 IDEs, and the students, through the 2 years of their course, have had experience of different IDEs and can choose to use different IDEs for different questions. All of that is completely in your control and fine by us. We talk about there being 2 folders that you should create in this secure user area or the exam profile for the students. One folder, we call it completed coding folder, is where you should be asking your students to save their amended code files. The student coding folder is where we're telling you on the morning of the exam you should drop the seed code files that we provide to you. On the left-hand side of this screen here, you can see student coding, and it has the PLS, the program language subset, and it has 6.py files. Now, some assessments, there's also a text file that would be addition. There might at some time be 2 text files. these text files will always be a comma-separated value, CSV formatted, and saved as a file .txt. So no surprises. If there's a text file that's supplied, it'll always be comma-separated values. It will always have a file extension of txt. So and in our past papers and specimen papers, there are examples of .py files with a text file and without. And then on the right-hand side, we're showing a folder structure where the completed coding. So the idea is that we want you to have your students open up q01.py, do save as q01 finished.py, and stick it in the completed coding folder. So that's the ideal scenario, and that's what we would like you to help students become familiar with by doing mocks and practice and getting their skills so that they do save all of their amended work in the correct folder, ideally with the right file name. Alexa has your hand up.
Yeah, well, I just thought, because we did have some pre-submitted questions ahead of the session today, and one that I know came through that ties in with this that I would just like to kind of put out there, and then you can respond, Tim. So this was from one of the subject teachers, and it said, if the students all save their files as, for example, Q01 finished, how do centres differentiate between the files for different students? Do they save the files in separate folders by candidate number?
Yeah. What we recommend, and it is captured in the ICE, I'm pretty sure it is, I hope it is, but what we say is when your student has finished there and they stand up and leave, so there'll be a student coding folder, and it will be the same name folder for all of your candidates, but the user profile will have a username that will be specifically for that student. So the IT department usually, they don't go around to each computer to collect this data. They usually run a script of some sort, and they would zip up those files in Fred's user area as Fred Smith center number .zip. And then that zip file, which has all of the students' work in it, is the one thing that we would recommend you upload to Learner Work Transfer. So it's a good question. I get that. The other thing is, though, you're free. If you don't want to call it completed coding folder, we're not married to that specific file name. We wanted to provide a straightforward single example of how to do it. If you have trained your students so that the student coding folder is called originals don't change, and the completed coding folder is called your work, that's also fine. We don't mind. The idea of the folder structures and the way we've laid it out is to try and keep it clear and simple as possible for centres. But there are lots of variations on this theme. The key thing is that the security and integrity of the assessment are not compromised. So there's lots of different ways of approaching that. But anyway, so long answer to a short question. Alexa, you got another one?
Yeah, well, I just thought, and I know kind of we cover this, if you like, if you read between the lines, we don't kind of actually stipulate this. So I was just wondering, I've got another question, if I could read it out, Tim, and for you just to confirm that this assessment is not done using any, like an app, for example. So this was the question that was submitted by one of the IT technicians. So what they were kind of asking is there any specific app they need to use? Do I need to leave the app open before they start the exam? What other apps can they use? And if I have two different apps installed, can the student use any of them? So I was just wondering if you could just clarify exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So the user area should be set up with the tools, apps, programs, whatever you want to call them, that the student would normally use and have used in their teaching and learning. The user profile will control the fact that there's no internet access and therefore no collaborative features. Whatever apps are dropped into those user areas need to be clean of any existing work, so it can't contain any previous work. But yes, it will be the language, the IDE, maybe two IDEs. If your students have been using Notepad or a text editor, they can have that. If they've been using Excel, they can have that. But there's no app that we require you to have. We want you to use your equipment with the internet cut off and your students in a familiar working environment. So the teacher will be able to work with the IT department to say which applications or software programs need to be installed. Is that okay? Great. So I think we've talked about the structure of the folders. It's always something that comes back in the Q&A later. So let's move on. So in terms of contingency measures, again, lots of this is covered in the ICE because it is important. These exams are, there will be more and more of this as years go by. And like I say, we've been doing these exams for 14 years and centres around the country have with various qualifications. So it's sensible that there's an IT support person. If a computer screen starts smoking or goes black, somebody who can plug a new monitor in and get that student up and running again is a very sensible person to have on hand. If the system crashes and can't be rebooted, it's a great idea to have spare computers if possible. I mean, I know not always is this kind of thing possible, but these are ideal. It's also sensible to have someone who is able to refresh those original coding files in case a student has been reckless and destroyed everything in the panic of their GCSE. We have no problem with you dropping clean, start afresh files in for them. So somebody who is competent and able to do that should be on hand if at all possible. Invigilators should be aware of what to do if there's a power cut. So in the case of a power cut or a system outage, if the lights literally go off, then it's going to be the centre are going to have to try and decide if it's a half an hour. The students will have to sit there for the half an hour, get things back up and running, and then the end can be delayed by that half an hour. You manage that internally. It's covered in the ICE. And in the very worst case situation where a power cut happens and doesn't come back on that day, because Ofqual requires that this high-stake assessment is done on a specific day, if the students are literally not able to submit any evidence, then you go through what exams officers know of as a special considerations request. We haven't had any of them yet. Next slide.
Just before we go on, Tim, there's just a question that's in the chat from Daniel, which I think just refers a bit to what we were talking about previously. Yeah. And they've asked, does the IDE need to be open before they start?
So it absolutely can be. It will be whatever is most familiar to your students, however you practiced it. There are large variations of IDEs. As I said before, I know of some centres that provide 2 or 3 IDEs on exam day, and the students would choose which one they use. In a situation like that, if your students are so competent that they want to jump around and use an IDE because it would be better for some questions and another IDE for other questions, then you wouldn't want it to be open. If your cohort are one IDE and only one IDE, absolutely it can be open, not a problem. There's no marks in this assessment for them being able to successfully open an IDE.
Hopefully that helps answer the question, Daniel. And Tim, just whilst we're on the kind of support from IT, there was another question that was submitted ahead of the session today. So, and again, I just want to kind of put it to the group, and then we can have the answer live. So the question was, if a student does a manipulation on the computer during the exam while coding, which ends up blocking the computer and preventing them from continuing the exam, can an IT specialist unblock it?
Yeah, so this would be an example of some kind of crash. If a student manages to crash their system, perfect. Have an IT person there that can either reboot it, move them to a different machine. We also have captured in the ICE, if you're a centre that doesn't have a huge IT support department and expertise on hand, and you need to rely on the classroom teacher, it is permitted for the classroom teacher to be that support, but they must never be on their own, and they must go in and come out. So, I think unless I'm wrong, have a really good read of the ICE. If you have a question you don't think is covered in the ICE, make sure you email them to us ahead of time, and we'll get you a specific answer if you've got a specific concern. and if the IDE needs to be improved, we'll roll that into it as well going forward. I said IDE, I meant ICE in this case, the instructions for the conduct of the exam. So hopefully that's okay. Shall we move on? So what to expect on the day of the exam? So the exam is scheduled for the PM, and all your exams officers will know that is it plus or minus 30 minutes for a high-stake exam. So go to the next slide. So on the morning at 8 o'clock, the seed code files will be published to the website under what we refer to as a gold padlock security. All of the teachers in the room will be very familiar with silver padlock, which means students can't get it, but anyone with an Edexcel Online profile can get it. The gold padlock is further secure in that only the exams officer can grab it. Now, we talk about the management of these secure assets, again, in the ICE. The exams officer can grab them at 8 o'clock in the morning, and now it is your business in your centre who you give them to and what you use, what process you use to keep them secure so that they only go to the right people. The classic sort of solution would be that the exams officer would download them, drop them into a secure folder that only the IT support team have access to, and then the IT support team would run a script that deployed all of those seed code assets to all the students' user profiles. There are many, many different variations along that theme. That would be the kind of ideal automated solution. I do even know of some centres that use a memory stick and somebody physically goes to each computer to log them on. All of this in advance of that kickoff for the exam. So what you will get digitally are the seed code files, the .py, maybe a .txt file, maybe not. There will be a digital version of the PLS, the programming language subset. Now, the teachers will be very familiar with that. For the exams officers, the programming language subset is everything of the Python programming language that a student would need in order to get all the marks, because we don't want them having to try to remember syntax. That's not what the assessment is about. So digitally, the programming language subset can be searched because it's like a PDF file, so they can search it and find the syntax that they need to help them solve the questions that they need in the exam. Practicing that use of the screen is really valuable ahead of time. So mocks and practice papers will help with that. So they're going to be on gold padlock. If the gold padlock access is causing any issues, there's also the secure download service, which is something built into Edexcel Online that exams officers normally are quite familiar with. If those two channels are problematic, you contact us and we have other ways that we can get them to you. Not meaning to sound strange there, but these assets are so tiny, in the worst case scenario, we could definitely even download to a mobile phone with somebody standing out on the playground who can get a signal there. So if the internet signal in the school is so bad, we'll find a way. We've not, in the first, had 2 live sessions. We've never had any issues with getting the assets to the centre yet. So fingers crossed we won't ever. That's what will happen digitally. In terms of hard copy, the question paper will have been dispatched in the normal process, as all question papers are. And exams officers, again, you should be familiar with, if there's any questions or concerns about where they are, there are processes and forms built in, I think, to Edexcel Online for you to request update or track the question papers, or request ones last minute if they just haven't arrived. The students will also have, in paper form, as an insert to their question paper, a PLS in hard copy. So it'll be digital and in hard copy. Yeah, so there you go. At the end, contact us if within 7 days of the exam you haven't seen it or you can't track it. So that's for the question papers. Okay, so hopefully that's familiar. Learner Work Transfer, LWT. Yeah, so if you put the poll up, Alexa. I don't see it. There you go. So Learner Work Transfer has been, we've used it, I think, for about 4 or 5 live assessment windows, some November and some summer, maybe 3 summer assessment windows. And there have been mixed responses to Learner Work Transfer. Some of our colleagues in other qualifications, performing arts, PE, where there's huge video files, they have in the past been problematic. Most of those issues have been resolved by the architecture of Learner Work Transfer. Our particular subject in computer science, because our files have always been small, there's been relatively little in the way of problems. And as I say, we've never had a situation where we weren't able to get the students' work so that the examiners could assess it. So it's a pretty much 50-50 split for the people that have used it and haven't. If you have had experience of it in the past and found it to be problematic, we think we have ruled out a lot of the issues, and certainly with computer science, we've not really had any major issues. Sometimes it can be a bit weird about a zipped file, and it will say it's corrupted and normally or not compatible. And normally the workaround for that is to unzip it, rezip it, and upload it again, and then it seems to be fine. So the submitting of the candidate work will be done using this portal. The screen, the PowerPoint there shows where how you get to it. Important that you do the examination/moderation option of Learner Work Transfer, and don't go into standards verification. That won't be a pleasant experience, unless you've got standards verification samples to upload. But okay, so that's for us. The window, Tuesday 21st of May after the exam through to Thursday 23rd. There's a button in Learner Work Transfer. We've got some good detailed instructions, and there's some documents that will give you there's a link to it there on this slide. There is a button which you have to press. I'm not sure it's entirely intuitive, but there's a button. Once you've dragged all the students' work over on top of their tiles, there's a button to submit, and it's important that you do that. Okay, so that's Learner Work Transfer. Next slide. Here we go. Oh, here's an example of what Learner Work Transfer looks like. Now, again, it's a centre's responsibility to decide who it is that does this zipping up of the student's work and dragging it over to the tile for the upload. You can decide. It can be the exams officer. It can be some of the IT team, or it can, if necessary, be the subject teacher. The key thing here is, from the point of view of security, is that whoever it is that does it, whose student work it is, it's zipped up into one file, and it's dragged onto the right student's tile. And it's a drag and drop process. Is there anything on here I should be talking about? Yeah, so yeah, the exams officers, again, if a subject teacher is present when you're doing this, and the subject teacher says, "Oh my God, look, all of the students' work has been left in the student coding folder." It's not a bad thing to have those eyeballs. In which case, upload that instead of the completed or as well as. The key thing is, the best scenario is that whatever the work is that they've done, you upload it in Learner Work Transfer to us so our examiners get to see it. We won't, there's no marks lost for misnaming the file. Yeah, there's no marks lost for misspelling completed or finished or whatever the word is. There's no marks lost for putting it in the wrong folder, come to that. The only problem would be is if we didn't get it. So it's not a bad idea to have somebody from the IT team or the exams officers yourself just eyeball what you're zipping up to make sure that we're getting the students' work. Is that the submit button in the bottom yellow box there? Drag files here? No. Okay, so that's Learner Work Transfer. Hopefully smooth, simple, straightforward process. Great. The fun bit where you get to come off mute and I get to stop hearing the sound of my voice echoing into this little office at home here. My email address is on there, teachingcomputerscience@pearson.com. The exact same inbox is teachingict@, if you want to save typing. So don't hesitate to ask to come directly to me if you have any questions. So where are we? We're 16:34. So we've got lots of time now. Is this the end of the slides? Pretty much.
Yeah, that's the end of the slides, and people either be relieved or saddened to know there's no more polls either.
And you're free to either leave or put your hands up, unmute yourself. I think you have to put your hand up so that Alexa can unmute, or type questions in if you feel more comfortable doing that. Yes, question there. It is the same as the previous year. There's been no changes. We've got another hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Esther.
Great. We're a very, very small centre, so I've literally got 4 candidates. I'm assuming that when they finish, I can just put their work onto a USB and transfer it that way onto Learner Work Transfer.
So yes, I'm going to say yes, you can. If you have a network in your school, you would probably not have to walk over to each computer with a USB stick. You should be able to browse the folders. Do you have IT support?
Yeah, but only external. So on a Wednesday. so in time to actually upload it. So,
but I suppose if you've only got 4, it's not ideal. Memory sticks are notoriously problematic, and normally in centres a USB port would be disabled as well. So you might have to look into that. You might think that you can go with a memory stick up to a centre computer and download files, but you might find that the USB ports are disabled. I know in most schools they disable them.
No, I've done it. I've used them before. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, you absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not compromising the security or the integrity of the assessment in any way. It's just a hassle for you.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Like I say, we've only got 4, so it's not too bad.
I can. Oh, brilliant! You might unmute.
Yeah, hi. This is the first time we've done the Edexcel because we switched from OCR, and again, we have a very small centre when it comes down to our IT support, and they're very, very stretched at the moment. So on the day of the exam, in terms of getting the IT suite set up for the exam, am I allowed to be present in the room while they're getting it set up to make sure that everything is set up correctly and every file there? That's okay for me to do that, is that?
It's okay for you to do that to make sure that the right programs are installed and that the IDE is working. You shouldn't be looking at the seed code files specifically to check that they look fine. You can't do that. but definitely it makes sense making sure the user accounts are logging on and the IDE is running and working and Python is running. Yeah, definitely makes sense.
Great, thanks for
that. Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, I can. Yeah,
Hi.
well, loud and clear.
Obviously, we can't be in the room as a subject teacher. We can't be in the room during the assessment. But
yeah,
if we've trained the students to use the folder structures that you've talked about, can we either give notes to the invigilator or to the IT technicians as a reminder to students, but this is what you've been trained to do. This is how you do it. We're not telling them anything to do with the integrity of the assessment, but it's just about the folder structures. I'm just thinking some students with not the best memories.
Yeah, and it's not just that they're not the best memories. It's sometimes in the pressure of a GCSE exam, they do funny things. You can't necessarily trust students to do what they've been drilled to do for years. So yes, you can get the invigilators to remind them. Yes, you can get the invigilators to prompt them to read the instructions and do what it says on the tin. And then finally, I would say at the point after the exam, when the assets are being zipped up to be sent to us for examination, it's another point where either IT or exams officer or yourself with the exams officer can eyeball that what is being sent to us is what the students have done and not just an empty folder. So all of those are fine. Where we draw the line is that you wouldn't look into the students' question 3 and have any comment or look at the way that they answered it. That's too far. But sending us the work that the students have done, it makes perfect sense. Is that okay?
Excellent. Thank you. No, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I have got there is a question that's come through the Q&A from Lisa. Sorry, I can't use the chat and my microphone is awful. We are an Apple school. We use Macs. Can they use a MacBook or does it have to be a PC?
You absolutely can use a Mac. You absolutely can. We have designed this assessment so you can use whatever operating system, hardware, IDE that you choose. The securing the integrity of the assessment and the security assessment means that there should be no collaborative tools made available, and there should be no communication and no internet connection. Now, it's beyond my skill level to be able to recommend how you do that with a Mac. But we do have other centres who used Macintoshes, and I know we were putting together a document to help. Where is that, Alexa? That's not on the website yet, is there? But have that teacher email me because I can send them the draft how to with a Mac that we wrote by talking to a very experienced centre that use Macintosh computers, and they've run. We do have Macs running this assessment, so it's all doable. Yeah, definitely. We don't mandate that it has to be a Windows machine. In fact, there's some centres that do it using a Raspberry Pi because their IT people refused to put Python on the system. So the way they worked around it was they got a classroom full of Raspberry Pis and stuck keyboards and monitors onto it and did it that way. So hopefully that answers the question. Shame that we couldn't hear from the teacher. So we've got some chat coming up saying informative. Right, in the mocks, a student did something that blocked them from continuing their coding, but it wasn't a machine problem. In the exam, are we allowed to unblock coding so that they can carry on their exam? Yeah, I mean, for sure, the students should be facilitated to access all of the questions. I don't really understand what you mean by blocked them from continuing their coding. It's not something that is ringing any bells with me in all the problems I've had coding over some time. So maybe I just don't quite understand your issue. I mean, maybe other teachers might have an idea about this, but it feels to me like if they've crashed their system in some way, yeah, no problem rebooting it. I'm not sure what you mean by unblock. I mean, if the student writes code that goes into an infinite loop and locks their machine up, you can't go in and fix that code. They need to be taught that if they write an infinite loop code that hangs their computer up, that they can Control C or Control Z out of it or something. So I'm not sure exactly if I'm answering your question or just throwing in further confusion, but maybe this is something that would warrant, more detailed discussion. So please contact me and maybe we can flush it out a bit further. LB, I hope that helps. So Alexa, I see no. I feel like giving people a bit of their evening back, if and you, of course, I have to carry on working. Thanks. Not too sure what they did exactly. Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like something that very commonly happens. But if a system hangs, the system can be rebooted, reset. Okay. Well. Yeah, I hope it has been helpful. The key information here is don't be shy. If you have any questions or concerns, reach out and we'll get you the answers. Alexa, do you have anything else you want to add?
Just to say thank you very much for coming along, and it's always nice to have you all on board, and the questions have been really, really interesting. So thanks very much.
And I'll bid you all a happy and healthy Wednesday evening, I think.